Callie Andrews was elbow-deep in white roses when the best man walked into the bridal suite, and everything in her perfectly organized world tilted. "I'm looking for the wedding planner," the deep voice said behind her. She turned, brushing a smudge of greenery off her cheek with the back of her hand. "That's me," she said, eyeing the man who had just stepped into the room as if he owned it. Tall, dark suit, sharp jaw, he didn't look like a best man, he looked like trouble. "I'm Maddox Ward," he said, extending a hand. Callie blinked. Her sister's fiancé had mentioned his best friend was flying in from New York, but she hadn't expected this. Maddox looked like he belonged on the cover of a magazine, not standing in the middle of a Virginia vineyard where her little sister was getting married. She shook his hand. Firm grip, warm. "Callie, maid of honor, also the wedding planner. Also the one who's going to lose her mind if this florist doesn't get it together." He glanced around at the chaos half-assembled centerpieces, a dozen unopened crates and one very stressed woman in yoga pants. "You need help," she narrowed her eyes. "You offering?" "I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty," she crossed her arms. "You're wearing a watch that costs more than my car," he smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Doesn't mean I don't know how to carry boxes." Callie didn't have time to waste. "Fine. If you're serious, grab that crate and start unpacking the candles. They're labeled." To her surprise, Maddox rolled up his sleeves and got to work. By the time the sun set behind the vineyards, the reception barn was transformed. Candles flickered on every table, the floral arch was finally standing, and Callie had only snapped at 3 people instead of her usual 5. Maddox, to her annoyance, had been irritatingly good at everything: stacking chairs, organizing silverware, even calming down the DJ when the power briefly went out. "So," he said, leaning against the barn door beside her as the sky turned pink, "does your sister know how lucky she is to have you?" Callie let out a breath. "She knows. I've been planning this wedding since she got engaged. She deserves something perfect." He looked at her. "Really looked this time? And what about you? What about me? Who plans your happy ending?" She laughed, caught off guard. "I don't have time for that." He tilted his head. "Why not?" "I run a small event business. I'm my own assistant, accountant, and marketing team. And I've already seen how messy love can get." She glanced back at the barn. "My parents split during my senior prom. I don't exactly believe in fairy tales." Maddox didn't say anything, just watched her with those unreadable eyes. "Anyway," she said, brushing past him, "thanks for the help today." He turned with her. "I'm not leaving," she frowned. "What do you mean, I'm staying here for the week? Groomsman duty? Plus, the groom's family knows me. They want me close." Callie groaned. "You're going to be underfoot the entire time, aren't you?" He grinned. "Looks like it." The next morning, she found him already at the venue, talking to the caterers like he'd been born doing it. He wore a crisp white shirt rolled at the sleeves and slacks that looked tailored to perfection. Still, he didn't hesitate to lift a heavy tray or sweep up broken glass when someone dropped a wine flute. By day 3, Callie had stopped rolling her eyes whenever he offered help. By day 4, she caught herself looking for him before anyone else. That night, after the rehearsal dinner wrapped and the rest of the bridal party left for the hotel, Maddox found her alone on the back deck of the barn, staring out into the vineyard under the stars. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "Just tired." He stepped beside her. "You're allowed to be. I just want everything to be perfect for her." He glanced at her, then reached into his pocket. "Here." She blinked as he held out a small velvet box. "What is this?" "Open it." Callie popped the lid and gasped. Inside was a delicate rose gold bracelet, thin and elegant with a tiny diamond charm. "Why would you? You've worked harder than anyone. I saw it at a boutique in New York a few weeks ago. I didn't know who it was for until now." Her breath caught. "Maddox." "It's not a move," he said quietly. "It's a thank you." She looked up at him, heart pounding. "You didn't have to, I wanted to." The air between them shifted, electric. Too close, Callie swallowed. "You're dangerous." He leaned in, his voice low. "Only if you want me to be." She stepped back, heart fluttering. "Good night, Maddox. but the way his gaze lingered. It didn't feel like a goodbye. The next day was the wedding. It went off without a hitch. Callie watched her sister walk down the aisle glowing. She smiled through happy tears, hugged every vendor, and made sure the couple danced under the stars just like she'd planned. But when the slow music started and she turned to head back inside, a hand caught hers. "Dance with me," Maddox said, already pulling her in. "I don't do slow dances," she whispered, even as her body leaned into his. "Do this one," he said softly, resting a hand on her waist. Their bodies moved in sync, the vineyard glowing behind them, and for the first time, Callie didn't feel like the planner. She felt something else entirely. "I've been thinking about you," he said near her ear. "Maddox, don't, too late," she looked up at him. "You're not staying in Virginia." "I'm not," he agreed, "but I've never met anyone like you, and I don't want this to end at midnight." She shook her head. "You're a billionaire who lives in New York. I'm a girl with a small business and a studio apartment with a broken heater." He stepped closer. "That doesn't scare me. It should, but it doesn't." The song ended, but they didn't move, and Callie felt it, the shift. The beginning of something she hadn't planned at all. The wedding was over, and the vineyard had gone quiet. Callie stood barefoot on the wooden deck outside the barn, holding a glass of champagne that had long since gone warm. The string lights above her swayed gently in the breeze, and laughter still drifted faintly from the after-party inside the main house. Behind her, the door creaked open. "I thought I might find you here," Maddox said as he stepped out, his jacket gone, sleeves rolled, collar open. Callie didn't turn. "You're supposed to be inside charming the guests." "I've already done that, twice." She finally looked at him. "You always this persistent?" He leaned against the railing, glancing out at the rows of vines glowing gold under the moonlight. "Only when it matters," she exhaled, setting her glass down. "You don't know me. I know enough to wonder why someone who just pulled off a flawless wedding looks like she's carrying the weight of it alone. I'm tired, that's all. No, tired people go home. You're out here like you're waiting for something." Callie hesitated, then sat on the bench by the railing, tucking her legs beneath her. "When everything's done, I never know what to do next. It's like I pour myself into it so completely, and when it ends, I'm just floating." Maddox sat beside her, not touching, but close enough that she could feel the heat of him. "You ever think maybe you deserve something for yourself?" She gave a short laugh. "I've had zero time to even consider what that would be." "Then let me make you an offer. Is this where you tell me you're secretly a prince?" "No, just incredibly persuasive." She turned her head. "Go on." "I'm flying back to Manhattan Sunday morning." "Come with me?" Callie stared at him, unsure if he was joking. He wasn't smiling. "You want me to drop everything and follow you to New York? I want to show you something. A different life. One where you're not always behind the scenes making things happen for everyone else." She shook her head. "That's insane." "Maybe, but you don't strike me as someone who plays it safe." She stood abruptly. "You don't get to say that. You don't know what I've given up to keep this business alive. I've worked weddings when I had the flu. I've driven across state lines for last-minute linen replacements. I've maxed out credit cards and skipped holidays to keep everything running." "I'm not asking you to give it up," he said, rising. "I'm asking you to take a breath. Just one." She folded her arms. "And what are you really offering? A weekend?" "A distraction." "I don't do distractions." "Then what do you do?" He stepped closer. "I make decisions, big ones with risk, and I know a moment when it matters. I can't just disappear." "You wouldn't be disappearing, you'd be choosing something." For once, she looked away, heart pounding for reasons she didn't want to examine. "You make it sound easy, it's not, but I'm still asking." She shook her head, more at herself than him. "I need time. You've got until tomorrow night." He left her there without another word. The next morning, Callie avoided the main house. She buried herself in post-wedding tasks, returning rental vases, sending thank-you messages to vendors, boxing up leftover favors. But her hands trembled every time her phone buzzed. It didn't, not once. By late afternoon, she found herself in the kitchen of the estate house, where her sister and new brother-in-law were packing for their honeymoon. "You okay?" her sister asked, zipping up a suitcase. "Fine," Callie replied too quickly. You don't look fine, I'm just tired. Her sister studied her. Did something happen with Maddox? Callie hesitated. He invited me to New York. Her sister's eyebrows rose, and I said I couldn't. Why? I have clients, a schedule. I can't just abandon everything for some guy I barely know. Her sister sat beside her at the kitchen island. I watched you all week. You lit up when he was around. I don't think you've looked at anyone like that in years. Callie looked down. It's not real. Why not? Because people like him don't stay. They swoop in with promises and charm and then they go back to their worlds. Maybe. Or maybe he's the first person who actually sees you. That night, Callie stood in her apartment surrounded by half-unpacked boxes from her last move. A list of upcoming events was taped to the fridge. She stared at it for 5 full minutes. Then she pulled out her phone. What are you doing right now? She asked when he answered, waiting. I can't fly to New York, I figured. But if you're serious about this. I am. Then you come here tomorrow. Silence, then text me the address. She hung up. Her pulse was racing again, but this time it wasn't from stress. It was anticipation. The next afternoon, a sleek black car pulled into her quiet street. She stood at the top of the stairs in jeans and a blouse, watching Maddox step out, duffel in hand, sunglasses tucked into the front of his shirt. You're really here, she said as she opened the door. You called. She stepped aside to let him in. This isn't Manhattan. No, he said, glancing around at the modest apartment. But it's you. She folded her arms. What now? Now, he said, setting his bag down. You let me take you out. No tuxedos, no weddings, just us. She grabbed her coat. Fine. But I'm picking the place. Deal. They ended up at a tiny Italian restaurant on the edge of town, the kind with flickering candles and wine bottles and waiters who knew everyone by name. Maddox didn't flinch when the hostess greeted Callie with a hug, or when their table rocked slightly from an uneven floorboard. Over pasta and red wine he asked questions. Real ones. About her first job, her favorite childhood memory, the worst event disaster she'd ever survived. She answered them all, slowly at first, then with laughter she hadn't felt in months. When dessert came, he leaned forward. You feel different tonight. How so? Like you're not holding your breath anymore. She tilted her head. Maybe I'm not. Outside, the air was crisp. He walked her back to her car, hands in his pockets. Are you staying the night here? She asked. Only if you want me to. She hesitated, then pulled her keys from her purse. Come on, I'll make coffee. As they crossed the street, he reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. Maddox watched Callie as she moved around the kitchen with a quiet kind of focus, pouring water into a kettle and pulling 2 mismatched mugs from a high shelf. She hadn't said much since they'd gotten back from dinner, but there was something different in her silence, now calmer, less guarded. He leaned back against the counter, his gaze following her every movement, not with impatience, but with a fascination he hadn't quite felt before. The water takes forever to boil, she said without looking up. I keep meaning to replace the kettle, but something else always comes up. He nodded once. You prioritize everything but yourself. I'm starting to realize that's the pattern. She turned, raising an eyebrow, and you're starting to sound like a therapist. I'm not. But I'm observant. Dangerous combination, she muttered, then opened the fridge. I have almond milk, oat milk, or just regular. Choose your poison. Regular's fine. She poured it into a small jug and set it beside the mugs. You always this adaptable. Only when I care what someone thinks. Callie paused, her fingers brushing the handle of the kettle. Is that supposed to scare me or flatter me? Neither. Just telling you where I'm at. The kettle began to hiss, and she turned off the burner before the whistle could pierce the room. Steam curled into the air as she poured it over the tea bags. I don't know what this is, she said finally, sliding him a mug. Whatever we're doing. It doesn't have to be labeled right now. But you're not exactly a low-profile guy. You show up, turn everything upside down, and now you're in my kitchen acting like we've known each other for years. Does it feel wrong? She hesitated. No. He took a sip, waiting. I just don't want this to be something you walk away from when the novelty wears off. I don't do novelty, I run 5 companies, nothing about my life is casual. She sat across from him at the small table. 5, he nodded. Real estate development, high-end hospitality, a private aviation firm, a tech startup accelerator, and a luxury travel brand. They all feed into each other. She blinked. And you still found time to help me fold napkins and untangle fairy lights. I find time for what matters. She stared at him, the weight of his words settling between them. You're not what I expected, she admitted. What did you expect? Someone colder, detached. You know the cliché. Is that why you've been trying not to like me? I wasn't trying, she said under her breath. It just seemed safer. He leaned forward, resting his arms on the table. You're brave enough to run a business on your own, but terrified of being seen. I'm not terrified. Then what are you? She didn't answer right away. Cautious. That's not the same as safe. I know, he set his mug down. I want more than a few nights of wondering what this could be. I want to know what it looks like when you let someone in, Callie's throat tightened. And if I can't give you that right away, then I'll wait. She looked at him for a long moment. You're serious? Yes, the silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was full, charged. Like something had shifted again. But this time, not because of proximity or timing, but because neither of them had looked away. The next morning, Callie woke to the smell of coffee and the muffled sound of someone moving around her living room. She slipped out of bed, pulling on a robe, and padded down the hallway to find Maddox pouring 2 cups at the kitchen counter. You found the coffee, she asked, voice still groggy, in the 3rd cabinet, next to a box of expired granola bars. She rolled her eyes. Don't judge me. I wouldn't dare. She took the mug he offered and leaned against the counter. I forgot how nice it is to wake up and not immediately feel behind. Then let's do something today that doesn't involve a checklist. Like what? I have a car coming in an hour. She narrowed her eyes. Where are you taking me? You'll see. An hour later, she was in the passenger seat of a sleek black SUV, winding through back roads she hadn't driven in years. Maddox said nothing, just watched the road, one hand on the wheel, the other resting casually between them. He didn't seem like someone used to silence, and yet he wore it comfortably, like a well-tailored suit. They pulled up to a sprawling property on the edge of town, an old estate that had been empty for years. The house was massive, weathered, but still stately, with ivy climbing the stone walls and a wrought iron gate that stood half open. Callie stepped out slowly. I used to pass this place on my way to school. It's been abandoned since I was a kid. I bought it last month, Maddox said, coming around to stand beside her. She turned sharply. Why? I was looking for a location to launch a high-end retreat service, private events, weddings, corporate wellness. But seeing it now, I thought of you. What do you mean? I saw the way you pulled off your sister's wedding. You didn't just plan it, you transformed that vineyard. You have vision. Callie stared at him, stunned. Are you saying you want me to work with you? I'm saying I want to invest in you, in your business. You've been carrying it alone for too long. You don't need saving. You need a partner who sees what you're capable of. She folded her arms. This is a lot. I know, but think about it. Custom events run from this property, fully funded with your brand front and center. I can handle the capital. You keep creative control. And you just do that for someone else. No, for you. Yes, her voice was quiet. Why? Because I believe in you. And because I'm already all in. Callie walked a few steps toward the house, her boots crunching over gravel. The sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light over the windows, and for the first time, she let herself imagine it her own space, her name on something real and lasting. Not just piecing things together to get by, but building something that could grow. She turned back to him. You're not trying to buy me, are you? No, he said firmly. I'm trying to build something with you, she exhaled, her heart thudding. Then let's do it. He stepped forward, sliding his hand into hers. Together, together. Callie stood beneath the sweeping oak trees that bordered the estate, her fingers trailing along the iron gate as golden light filtered through the leaves. The property Maddox had shown her just days ago now felt less like a dream and more like the beginning of something real. She hadn't told anyone yet, not her friends, not her clients, but her mind was already sketching out floor plans and event layouts, picturing string lights draped over the courtyard, and the laughter of future weddings echoing through the historic halls. Behind her, Maddox walked toward her from the house, a set of blueprints rolled under his arm and a look she hadn't quite seen before, focused but softer. Like he was building more than just a business plan. "We need to talk about the conservatory," he said. "It's structurally sound, but the glass needs replacing. I figured we could turn it into an indoor ceremony space. Weatherproof." Callie glanced over her shoulder. "You say that like you've already hired a contractor." "I did. Yesterday." She turned fully, eyebrows raised. "Without asking me? I figured you'd tell me if I was stepping on your toes." "You are." He handed her the blueprints anyway, "but I'm hoping you'll forgive me." She unrolled them on the stone ledge. "It's not bad. Actually, it's smart." "I thought so." She traced a line with her finger. "If we reposition the fountain and open up this walkway, it'll make the entrance feel more open, more inviting." "Exactly what I was thinking." Callie paused, then looked up at him. "You're really in this?" "I told you I was. I didn't think you meant pouring money into renovations before we even finalize the business name. I trust you." "That's the difference." She studied him, the way the wind ruffled the edge of his shirt, the way he didn't fidget or second-guess himself. "You're not used to being questioned, are you?" "I'm used to being challenged." "I like it. Even when I tell you you're wrong, especially then." She shook her head, but there was a laugh caught in her throat. "You're impossible. I'm persistent." A horn honked in the distance. Callie looked toward the road. A delivery van pulled up with a load of furniture she hadn't even ordered. She turned back, incredulous. "What is that?" "Outdoor seating for the east lawn." "I had a designer in the city put together a few things." "Maddox, you said you wanted something timeless." "I didn't say deliver it tomorrow." He stepped closer. "You're allowed to have things come easy now. That's not how I work." "Maybe it should be." She crossed her arms. "You think throwing money at it makes it better?" "No, I think building something with you makes it better." Her breath caught because he wasn't wrong and because it scared her. "I'm not used to this," she said quietly. "I know. But you're not alone anymore." His words settled into her like truth. She looked away before he could see too much in her eyes. Later that evening, they sat on the unfinished terrace, the sky deepening into violet. A bottle of wine was open between them, untouched. Instead, Callie was flipping through a binder of sketches, her brow furrowed. "You've been quiet," Maddox said, stretching his legs out in front of him. "I'm trying to figure out if the pergola should be wood or wrought iron. Which feels more like you?" She didn't answer right away. "I've always liked wood, it's warmer." "Then go with that." She closed the binder. "You make decisions sound easy. They're not. I just don't pretend they are." She turned to him, the last light catching the side of his face. "Why are you really doing this?" "I told you." "No. I mean all of it, not just the estate. This, me." He didn't rush the answer. "Because I've spent years building things that made money but never meant anything, and then I met you and suddenly I wanted something that did." She swallowed. "That's a lot to put on a person." "It's not pressure. It's honesty. You're not afraid I'll mess it up. I think you'll do something better than I ever could." She looked away, biting her lip. "You don't have to say anything," he added. "Just don't shut me out." "I'm not. You still think I'm going to disappear?" "I don't know what I think." He reached for her hand. "Then let me prove I won't." The next week was a whirlwind. Contractors came and went. A branding team pitched ideas for the business name. Callie narrowed it down to 3 and made Maddox vote. They toured antique markets for Dacre, and he let her haggle while pretending to be unimpressed, though she caught him smiling more than once. One night after a long day of meetings, Callie stood in the middle of the conservatory with a clipboard in hand, her hair twisted up into a knot and paint smudged on her arm. Maddox walked in behind her holding 2 boxes. "I brought dinner." "Ty." She turned, surprised. "You didn't have to, I wanted to. You've been in here since noon." "I didn't realize. You forget the world when you're building something." She set the clipboard down. "You're not wrong." They ate sitting on the floor, surrounded by drop cloths and glass panes waiting to be replaced. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't planned, but it felt perfect. Halfway through the meal, Callie looked at him. "What happens when this place is finished?" "What do you mean, when it's running? Booked, stable, what happens to us?" He set his chopsticks down. "I don't want this to be temporary. You're based in Manhattan. I can be based anywhere." She didn't reply. "Callie," he said gently, "I'm not asking you to move, I'm asking where we go next together." She looked down at her food, then back up. "I want to build a future here. Not just for the business, for me, for us." His thumb brushed her hand. "Then let's do it." The following month, they hosted their first event, a small, intimate wedding. Callie oversaw every detail. Maddox stayed mostly in the background, letting her lead. As the guests danced under the lanterns and the couple exchanged vows beneath the restored arch, he slipped beside her. "You did it," he said quietly. "We did it." He leaned in. "I have something for you. I don't need anything." "I know. But I wanted you to have it." He pulled a small velvet box from his jacket. Callie froze. "Maddox, open it." Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, a single diamond set in rose gold, just like the bracelet he'd given her once back when everything was still uncertain. "I don't want to wait," he said. "I've never been more sure of anything." Her eyes filled, but she kept her voice steady. "Are you asking?" He smiled, soft and certain. "I'm asking." She didn't hesitate. "Yes." The music swelled behind them, fireflies danced in the air. And for the first time in her life, Callie Andrews wasn't planning someone else's happy ending. She was living her own. Callie adjusted the collar of her navy dress and took a slow breath as the first guests began to arrive at the estate. The main entrance shimmered with lanterns suspended on invisible wire, casting soft light over the stone courtyard. The inaugural launch party for their venue, was in full swing. Industry leaders, press, and high-profile clients strolled in, guided by valet attendants and greeted with champagne flutes by waitstaff in crisp black uniforms. Maddox stood a few feet away, speaking with a city councilwoman, his tuxedo tailored to perfection, his hair swept back with effortless polish. He caught Callie's eye across the crowd and gave her a nod, not one of reassurance, but of shared triumph. She returned it with a small smile, her heart thudding with something that felt like awe. Shelby, her new assistant, appeared at her side. The caterers ahead of schedule, the lighting crews done, and the jazz trio just started their second set. "You've officially pulled this off." "I didn't do it alone," Callie said. Shelby grinned. "Still, you should enjoy it. This whole thing's yours." Callie watched as a former client recognized her and walked over, gushing about the transformation of the estate and asking about future bookings. She answered graciously, her voice steady, but her mind wandered somewhere else, somewhere deeper. Later, as the evening breeze began to cool and the string lights glowed brighter in the dusk, Maddox found her leaning against the terrace railing, sipping water from a crystal tumbler. "Are you hiding?" he asked, stepping beside her. "I'm observing," she replied. "There's a difference. From this angle, it looks like you're avoiding compliments." "Maybe," she admitted. "It still feels strange, all this attention." He studied the guests mingling below. "You've earned every bit of it. You really think people will keep booking us?" "I don't think it. I know it." She looked at him. "You're always that sure of everything?" "No," he said, "but I'm always sure of you." Callie turned fully toward him. "Can I ask you something? Anything? When did you know about us?" He didn't hesitate. "The morning after your sister's wedding. You were sitting on the porch with a mug of coffee, hair a mess, talking to a florist on speakerphone about seasonal dahlias. I looked at you and thought, that's it. That's the woman." Her eyes softened. "You never told me that." "I didn't want to scare you." "You didn't." He leaned in. "Good, because I'm not done telling you things." Before she could respond, the event manager approached with a clipboard, apologizing for interrupting. Callie handled it quickly, delegating a minor issue with confidence and ease. As she turned back to Maddox, he was watching her with something more than admiration, something grounded and unshakable. "I want to talk to you about something else," he said, his voice quieter now. "What is it?" "I've been thinking about our life, not just the business, the rest of it." She tilted her head. "Go on." "I want to split my time. Between here and the city, I've already stepped back from 2 of the companies. I've brought on new partners. I want to be present, not just physically, fully." Callie blinked. "You're serious?" "I've never been more." She stepped closer. "You're giving up a lot." "I'm not giving anything up. I'm choosing what matters." Something opened in her then finally, and she reached for his hand. "I want all of it with you, not just the estate, not just the business, us." His grip tightened. "Then let's stop thinking in halves." The crowd inside the estate shifted as music changed tempo, signaling the final toast. Maddox led her to the top of the grand staircase that overlooked the ballroom, now transformed into a sea of candlelight and crystal. He took the microphone from the event host and turned to face the crowd. "I hope you're all enjoying this evening," he began. "And I hope you'll raise your glasses with me to something more than a venue. This place was born out of passion, vision, and a woman who refused to let limitations define her. She took an abandoned estate and built a legacy. Callie Andrews, you are the soul of this place. And the center of mine." There were gasps and soft applause as he turned to her, pulled a velvet box from his pocket, and dropped to one knee. Callie covered her mouth, stunned. "I've already asked you to marry me," he said, looking up at her. "But tonight I'm asking you to build a life with me. Not just a future, a forever. Marry me here at this place, with our names on the gate and our hearts in every stone." Tears welled in her eyes. She stepped forward, took his hand, and pulled him up into a kiss that said everything words couldn't. "Yes," she whispered against his lips. "Yes to all of it." That spring, under a canopy of magnolia blossoms, Callie walked down the aisle in the very conservatory she had once sketched on a napkin. Guests filled the space, surrounded by the gardens she had designed, the art she had dreamed into being, and the chandeliers she had chosen herself. Maddox waited for her at the altar, not in a tuxedo, but in a dark, tailored suit with a pale rose boutonniere that matched the flowers in her bouquet. His eyes never left hers. Their vows were simple but powerful. "I used to believe love was something that fit around the edges of my life," Callie said, "but you showed me it could be the foundation." "And you showed me," Maddox replied, "that real power isn't in money or control. It's in choosing someone over and over, no matter what." The guests rose in applause as they kissed, sunlight streaming through the glass above them. That summer, the estate became fully booked for the next 18 months. Callie hired a full team and finally allowed herself a break. They traveled together through Italy, Greece, and Morocco, eating street food as often as they dined in luxury, always finding their way back to each other. By fall, Maddox had finished building a small guest house on the edge of the property. It became the first place they truly called their own, quiet, filled with light, a mix of antique charm and modern comfort. Callie planted lavender in the garden. Maddox bought her a wine fridge she kept forgetting to fill. One evening, she placed a small wrapped box on his desk. Inside was a sonogram photo. He looked up at her, speechless. "You're going to be a father," she whispered. He stood, pulled her into his arms, and held her tighter than he ever had years past. The estate grew. So did their family. On any given day, Callie could be found walking through the gardens with a child on her hip, clipboard in hand. And Maddox could be seen by her side. No longer the man who ran from city to city, but one who had finally found where he belonged. Together, they built more than a business. They built a life, and they never looked back.